Hey, welcome back. So today we're going to tackle a really big, maybe even a controversial idea in leadership. This whole myth of the self-made person. You know the story, right? We all love it. But what if that very story is what's actually holding leaders back? All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so right off the bat, the source for this explainer comes in with a really powerful argument. It says this whole concept of being self-made, well, it isn't just some harmless pat on the back. Nope. It's actually considered misleading, and it can lead straight to egotistical, prideful behavior. That is a bold claim, right? So let's unpack why this is so important for any leader to really get their head around.
All right, first up, the allure of self-made. So let's just start by asking, why do we love this story so much? I mean, let's be honest, the idea of a self-made leader it's incredibly appealing, isn't it? It totally taps into our cultural love for independence, for strength, for that whole rugged individual thing.
I mean, you can totally picture it, can't you? That lone genius tinkering away in a garage, the entrepreneur who just goes against the grain, the artist who couldn't care less about the critics. This character, this archetype is everywhere. We see it in movies, we read about it in books and business magazines. It's such a compelling story, you know? Pure willpower, a singular vision. But is it actually real? Okay, on to our next section, the dangers of pride. Because this is where that shiny narrative really starts to crack. See, believing you did it all by yourself, with zero help from anyone, it's not just wrong, it's actually dangerous for a leader's growth.
So here's the really crucial point. When a leader starts to believe that self-made lie, it kicks off this really dangerous chain reaction. It fuels their ego, making them shut down feedback. It builds up this pride that just isolates them from everyone else. And according to the source material, this path can literally end in shipwreck, a total catastrophic failure where their leadership just collapses under the weight of all that pride. It's basically a fight against how leaders are supposed to develop, which is, collaboratively.
In this comparison here really lays it all out, side by side. You've got two paths a leader can take. On one side, you have that self-made mindset, which leads straight to isolation and pushing help away. But on the other side, you've got the guided mindset, which is all about embracing counsel, staying humble, and actively looking for mentors. It really boils down to the difference between saying, I did it all by myself, versus we did this together. Which brings us to our third section, the power of counsel. So, okay, if the self-made path is a trap, then what's the alternative? Well, the answer is pretty simple, actually. It's the other path. Actively seeking out and, just as importantly, accepting guidance from other people. You know, there's this piece of ancient wisdom that's just so essential to this whole argument. It's a simple but really profound idea. We're safer, we're stronger, and we make way better decisions when we have trusted advisors around us. Think about it. A leader who's all alone is vulnerable, but a leader who seeks out counsel, they've got a whole network of support.
And this brings us to a really specific term from leadership theory called divine contacts. Now, this isn't about just finding any old advisor. According to something called Clinton's leadership emergence theory, these are those key mentors, the ones who seem to show up in a leader's life at the exact right moment to give them the guidance and support they desperately need. And that is the absolute key takeaway here. These relationships, they're not just random luck. They're critical, they're formative. These are the people who challenge how you think, who open doors for you, and who point out the blind spots you can't see yourself. For any leader who's trying to grow, these people aren't just a nice to have, they are absolutely essential. So for our fourth section, let's look at a case study in humility. Because to make all this feel a little less, abstract, we're going to look at a really powerful historical example of how this whole mentorship thing actually plays out in the real world.
Yeah, the source we're looking at points to the relationship between the Apostle Paul and his mentor, Barnabas. Now, Paul is obviously one of the most influential figures in all of history. But here's the thing, his journey was not a solo act, not even close.
So if you follow this timeline of Paul's transformation, you can see he actually started out pretty isolated. He'd been rejected by his community, so he was kind of forced into this self-made position. But then, and this is the key moment, his divine contact, Barnabas, stepped in and started mentoring him. That led to integration, right? Barnabas vouched for him, helped him get accepted by the wider community, and the final result? A total profound shift to humility. Paul went from being fiercely independent to realizing he was just one part of something way, way bigger than himself.
All right, our final section, 2 questions for leaders. So what do we do with all this? How can we apply these lessons? Well, this whole analysis leaves us with 2 really powerful questions to think about for our own leadership journeys.
And here's the first big one. Can leaders just wait around for one of these divine contacts to show up? Or can we, and maybe should we, be actively out there searching for mentors? What's our responsibility in finding the guidance we need to grow?
And finally, this brings us right back to that core warning we started with. What are the real dangers of isolation for a leader? I mean, if mentorship is the key to safety and growth, then trying to go it all alone, well, that isn't a sign of strength, is it? It's just a huge, unnecessary risk. The whole self-made leader thing, it makes for a great story, for sure. But the real question we have to ask is, at what cost? Is that myth really worth the potential for a total shipwreck? Now, that's a thought worth holding on to.